Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick telling CNBC that President Trump is likely to defer tariffs on all USMCA compliant goods from his latest round of tariffs. That could come as soon as today. That happening just moments ago. Here for more on Trump's trade negotiations and how this is going to play out, we want to bring in Nelson Cunningham. He's a former advisor to the Clinton and Biden administrations. Nelson, it's great to have you here on Yahoo Finance. We are getting some headlines here from Commerce Secretary Lutnick as we speak, saying that Trump may make this decision on the USMCA tariff delay as soon as today. He also went on to say USMCA goods-related tariff delay likely until April 2nd. I'm curious just what your thoughts are, your assessment of the headlines that have been coming out of the Trump administration here over the last several days, and what that signals just in terms of U.S. trade relations here under this new administration.
Well, thank you for having me on. You know, I look at this from two perspectives, not just as a former government official who played a role in implementing NAFTA way back in the day, and more recently was involved in dealing with the modern NAFTA, the USMCA. But also I spent 25 years advising US companies on how to do business in Mexico and Canada and the rest of the world, and how to conduct their businesses overseas. How is any businessman today who deals with Canada or Mexico, how are they supposed to plan their business? Mexico is our largest trading partner. Canada is our second largest trading partner. China is our third. These tariffs that the president is imposing and then maybe exempting and maybe pulling back, they're impacting vast quantities of the American economy. How can you plan if you're making automobiles or light bulbs or air conditioners, and you have goods that are flowing across the borders every day?
So talk to me about that, given what you mentioned about advising companies. I'm curious, especially with these headlines from Lutnick reiterating the idea that USMCA compliant companies might be eligible for exemptions. What other companies outside of the auto space might be able to make that argument that they are USMCA compliant and therefore be exempt from tariffs? Could agriculture firms be exempt, for example?
Yes. I think probably the largest sector that would be impacted, in addition to autos, would be oil and gas. We import something like $200 billion a year of oil and gas from Canada, and tariffs on that are huge, have a huge impact on oil and gas prices all across the northern border of the United States. We made a promise, the United States made a promise to Mexico and Canada nearly 30 years ago that we would keep our tariffs on each other low. We would put stability into the relationship so that people and businesses and governments on both sides of our borders could build their futures, secure the knowledge that they would have access to the largest market in the world, the North American market. What Donald Trump is doing is upending 30 years of promises, including his own USMCA agreement, which he negotiated in his first term. He is abruptly and without any principled view imposing these tariffs in violation, I would argue, of U.S. law.
Nelson, is there anything that's effective about President Trump's approach in your view?
Is there anything
that is effective, that is going to help, that is going to better position the U.S. on a world stage at all, just in terms of getting some sort of more, not leveling the playing field a little bit, but better positioning the U.S. when it comes to some of its trading partners?
Look, the president argues that the reason he wants to impose these tariffs is because of fentanyl and illegal immigration. Both are way down over the last 2 years, way down. And they do not impose Canada, they do not affect Canada and Mexico equally. 98% of the fentanyl comes across the southern border from Mexico. 98% of the illegal immigrants come across the southern border from Mexico. Less than 2% come from Canada. I think Canadians are are quite are quite justified in being frustrated and angry at the way that they are being treated by President Trump. They create none of the illegal migration and none of the fentanyl problem, and yet they're being equally blamed along with other countries. Trump may get some lip service paid on both fentanyl and immigration, but frankly, there's very little that Canada can do. And there are limits to what a country like Mexico can do. After all, fentanyl comes into this country because of the enormous demand that American consumers have for fentanyl. This is not something that the Mexicans are shoving down our throats. This is something that American citizens are doing to themselves every day. And Mexico, yes, is feeding that, but it's the American citizens that are creating the problem here. It's not the foreigners.
That's an interesting take, Nelson. We're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.